And don't forget, if you fancy a bet, click the link below. You can register automatically via the UG, peruse the best MMA odds online with our official partner, OwnBet, and they'll even match up to and including €100 if you send an email with the code UG100. Jonathan Trager for mixedmartialarts.com. Surprisingly, can you believe that? I'm joined by Casey here from MMAfighting.com. Mr. Gareth A. Davis, Daily Telegraph, BT Sport. Dave Meltzer from MMA Fighting and Wrestling Observer. John Morgan of MMA Junkie. Mark Ramundi of MMAfighting.com. Pete C. Carroll of Severe MMA. The Irish Mirror as well. And what's the other one? There's Fightland, yes, of course, the third one, and UFC, of course, as well. You've done bits for UFC. MC Sport Fighter. Miggy covers the sport in Spain on national telly as well, so he's doing great things for, well, I'll say Spanish MMA, but making sure that the sport becomes prominent in Spain, so kudos on that. Danny from Spain, who reports on MMA for As.com, one of the biggest newspapers in Spain. Brett Okamoto, ESPN, with Simon Head of The Sun in the UK and Ireland. Jim Edwards of MMA Latest in the Mirror.
Dude, that was crazy. First round went as expected. You know, when it was Conor's power, those counters were just piecing him up. Nate seemed like the slower fighter. And I'm watching in the arena, so I'm sitting with the fans, actually. I'm not in press row, press row kind of sucks. Sitting with the fans is way more fun.
I agree.
And all the Irish fans, and all of a sudden, halfway through the second, you just see pop, pop. And Conor just kind of goes back a little bit. You're like, is he faking it? And all of a sudden, it's just like it goes downhill so fast. Yeah. It was crazy how fast it went downhill, and it kind of made all that time that Chad had Conor on the ground wasn't a fluke. You know, Conor has some holes, just like Ronda. You know, it's like when they're dominant, they look like they're unbeatable, but when they lose, they look bad. And that's what it looked like when Conor was in a bad position. He looked bad. And Nate, in all those years of fighting since high school, that experience finally came through. Then he took massive shots coming into that, and he survived them. His head was still there. He didn't, even in the short training camp, he didn't waste the energy. Like I think even Conor said that he just wasn't efficient. Nate was efficient, and that's what proved the difference. That experience, and actually I think the experience and Nate's reach. Yeah. He just because it seemed like Conor was wasting a lot of energy. He was punching arms. It was like he was throwing a lot of power shots, but they were hitting here, not quite hitting him clean, you know.
Yeah.
But the short training camp hurt Nate, but also hurt Conor a lot because he's been training for a shorter, stockier fighter. Now all of a sudden you have a longer fighter. That's big different, and so your whole striking regimen is completely changed because now I'm assuming Nate has good 6 inches of reach. On Dos Anjos, I would assume. So, like the short camp hurt Conor, in sense of training, not in sense of health, physical. Yeah. So, and then it happened, and I saw it. I was just exciting to be here and witness this because I was ready. I saw GSP backstage. It's like, oh shoot, Conor's gonna win. They're gonna go GSP. GSP Conor, UFC 200, woohoo,
Going up the weights, Conor McGregor was training for 155 pounds against a very tough opponent in Nate Diaz, who was very bloodied after the first round, but never beaten. And, Conor came in weighing 168, he'd been training for 155. Yep. He talked about food in his belly, and he didn't look the same animal. He looked heavier, his fast movement was gone earlier, he looked fatigued early, and once he was hurt by that left hand, the writing was on the wall really, and then once they went to the ground, he just looked, he was done for that last minute. He was trying to survive on instinct, but Nate Diaz, with full command of his faculties on the ground with another guy hurt, he's always going to submit you. I think Conor McGregor's got to go back down to potentially featherweight, and obviously he's not going to get a lightweight title fight right now, but I think Diaz probably will.
Yeah. I don't know what to say. I mean, I think that the added weight got Conor McGregor tired quicker, and I think that's the story. And I thought that the problem was going to be Diaz getting tired. I thought that Diaz was going to come out strong. And I mean, Conor took him apart in the first round. I mean, he had him all bloody, but the guy's a real warrior. What can you say? and he mmade himself into a superstar. I mean, he was always Nick's little brother, and I mean, he's just out of the notoriety of this. I don't know if he could win the lightweight title, but just out of the notoriety of this, I think that he should probably be in line for that shot. Conor, it's tough. I don't know what you do with Conor. He's got to go back to the drawing. He'll still draw, but I mean, he's a superstar. He's made himself a superstar, but. The idea of him fighting Robbie Lawler and the idea of him fighting George St. Pierre, which were the two fights everybody was talking about, I don't see those ones now. I think that's tough.
Yeah, man, it was an incredible evening to say the least, man. Although, UFC President Dana White might not feel exactly the same way. It seems like some plans probably ruined, but I think it does set up some big fights. But the immediate aftermath, I mean, Conor McGregor looked great, but it was tough. You could see right away from the beginning that the reach was a real problem. The size was a real problem. Yes, he looked good. He found a way through it, but it was an issue. Nate Diaz, tough as nails, of course, and I think Conor may have gotten a little bit overconfident in there. I think dropping his hands and loading up on the left the way he was did definitely leave himself open for a counterattack. I think it was a little early in the fight for that, although things were really going as well. But at the end of the day, man, all credit to Nate Diaz for just being the guy that we thought he would be, just being as tough as we thought he would be. I thought Conor was still going to find a way to get the win, but Nate got it done. Huge win for him. Going to be interesting to see what it does for Conor. We'll say this, much respect for the way Conor handled himself after the fight. Very respectful of everybody in the cage, very respectful of Nate Diaz. As he always has said, humble in victory and humble in defeat, and he lived up to it tonight. So interesting to see what they decide going forward. Kind of ruined some plans moving forward, but hey, he's still got that belt back at 145, so a lot going on there.
Just shock, just so surprising. Yeah, I know that both Nate Diaz and Miesha Tate had fan bases that thought they were going to win the fight, and certainly you couldn't count them out of either one of those fights, but they also were not expected to win either one of those fights, and yet both of them won. Nate Diaz beat Conor McGregor. Miesha Tate won the UFC Women's Bantamweight title over Holly Holm. Both finishes. What an incredible night of fights. I'm still. It's only a few minutes after, and I'm just buzzing. It's incredible. First of all, Nate Diaz is a tough. I can curse on here, right? Nate Diaz is a tough son of a bitch, man.
It's almost advocated.
Well, thank God, because you can't talk about Nate Diaz without cursing a little bit. But man, he took everything that Conor McGregor had. He took every left hand, he took every kick, took every uppercut, took every right, and came back and made Conor McGregor, he turned him into a wrestler. He made Conor McGregor shoot in for a takedown on him in the second round. And Nate Diaz has, what did McGregor say, underrated jiu-jitsu? Well, the underrated jiu-jitsu was able to choke Conor McGregor out in the second round. This sport, man, this sport. It's, what are you, what? I'm just not lost for words.
It's absolutely unbelievable. I mean, after Tate pulling off what she pulled off in the co-main event, to see what happened there in the main event is absolutely unbelievable. And when you look at Conor coming out in the first round, he really did a lot of damage to Diaz, and you could hear the punches thudding into him as it was happening. But then whatever happened in the second round, he just seemed like he used up all his energy. Like, I've been covering Conor's career since 2010, and that's the first time I've ever seen him moving backwards. He got hit with a right hand, and he started moving backwards. And then the takedown, I mean, that's as rare as a hen's tooth. Like, I mean, he's going in for that. It's probably one of the most shocking nights you could really report in the sport. Obviously, one of the big things I'm thinking about is that Robbie Lawler fight was left open. They gave Wonder Boy Rory Lawler, they announced it, and it's just like Tyrone Woodley was the happiest man in the building there today. He nearly scaled press row. Yeah. He was dancing out there, but Conor got on the microphone. I'm sure he learned an awful lot from Ronda Rousey. He was all class in there, and I expect him to make an appearance at this press conference, to be honest, because I think he'll want to come out and he'll want to say, fair play to Nate. It was all Nate. Congratulations to him. And really, the anti-hero of MMA spoils the party for the golden child of the UFC. It's absolutely unbelievable. It really is, and I'm sure we're going to talk about this night for many, many years. Yeah. And already people in Ireland are talking about, Holly Holm didn't tap out. She went to sleep. Conor McGregor tapped out. This in Ireland, this is going to be talked about to nauseum, I imagine. Yeah. But once the radio stations pay me, I'm happy.
I think I was the only one in the Spanish press saying Miesha Tate and Nate Diaz.
Right. Oh, really?
So it was, yeah, absolutely.
You picked both?
Absolutely. We've had, first of all, it's great to be on your show. Yeah. Massive fan. We follow you from Spain. Regarding Nate Diaz, the biggest shock on planet Earth tonight.
By the way, we're in Vegas, obviously the home of gambling. Given that you predicted both those things, I do hope you had a parlay.
I did not. Two guys did actually win. First one was Marca TV in Spain, Marca, the newspaper.
On the back of your
Yes.
recommendation.
Yeah,
So what commission do you work on?
I don't actually gamble myself. They asked me for some predictions. I gave it to them. A friend in Spain, a boxer, asked me this morning at 6 a.m. He was going to bet on Holly Holm and Conor McGregor. I said, look, you should really put 2 submission victories, one for Misha and one for Nate. And I think he won.
Mystic Miggy here?
Not at all.
Mystic Miggy?
Not at all. I don't believe in that. I was just very lucky. Very, very lucky. And the guys, Misha Tate, Nate Diaz, have been amazing. They've obviously put on the hours. They didn't believe in the hype, which is the most important thing for a fighter. I think Nate, yesterday or the day before, said it correctly. You believe your predictions, but most importantly, the people you fought, they believed in your predictions, but I don't believe your predictions. And I think when Conor went beyond the first round, possibly, that was a little chink in the armour, you know.
Man, I'm just in shock. I'm really in shock. I think that I said the day before the fight, I said the UFC would cry if the two surprises are given, and they've both been given. And I think that it's just the entire figure, the entire McGregor person. Now they already had that void after Rousey. Now there's the McGregor void. On top of it, he doesn't lose the belt, so you don't have a new champion. I think in the end, the 3 inches in wingspan, etc. I mean, so many factors, but just what a surprise.
I think you saw how humbling this sport can be. I think you had a really confident guy in Conor McGregor who was willing to take risks, and that's what everybody was that's why people were drawn to him. That's why he was a star. Yeah. And you got to find that fine balance. Ronda Rousey had the same thing, where you're taking on risks, you're taking a lot on your plate, you're making these grand predictions, and that's what's good, it's what sells. But then you have to come through every time. I didn't think Conor McGregor fought a bad fight, especially it was his first time at 170 pounds. It's a completely different thing. He's carrying a lot of extra weight that he's not used to having on fight day. He's used to guys going down from that left hand, and Nate Diaz did not. So it's you're making adjustments, and you're doing it at the highest level under the brightest lights, and it's difficult, man. I mean, this sport, not everything goes according to plan, obviously.
It's amazing. The last few events I've been to, there's always been something shocking that's happened, whether it's Jose Aldo knocking him out in 13 seconds. Today we had 2. We had a shot with Misha Tate, shot with Conor McGregor. Fantastic fight for as long as it lasted. Everyone thought it was going to be Conor's power that was decisive. It turned out it was Diaz's power that won it. And when the fight went to the floor, Diaz's jiu-jitsu was what really turned that fight. And, all the chips are in the air now. We don't know what's going to happen for UFC 200.
I was a lot more shocked about this than I was about the co-main event of the evening. Conor, I just couldn't see losing this evening. I really couldn't. And to be quite honest with you, I thought after the first round, Conor was going to cruise to victory. He was landing big lefts on Diaz seemingly at will. The uppercut there looked prime for the taking. I said before the fight, everyone was calling it. It's going to be the right uppercut that is what does Diaz, and it was there all night. But I just don't know what happened. I mean, Diaz obviously landed that big left, and you just saw the complexion of Conor. His face changed, and it just went downhill from there. And there was just no way back. There was no way back, and I think, as Conor said himself, he panicked and he didn't know what to do. And unlike against Mendes, when he managed to scramble out of that position, he just made it worse for himself, flattened out, and he tapped very quickly. I think it was a consequence of the fact that it was totally locked in. I think, as we just said a minute ago, he was in a state of disarray after that strike. He just totally, it's body language. You go back and watch it because his face just changes. And I think even then he might have known, I'm in big trouble here.
I'm on top of the world.